Hey, my name's Jared. I'm 27, living in a one-bedroom apartment on the edge of Dallas, Texas. It's not much, just a couch that's seen better days, a coffee maker that's my lifeline, and a view of a parking lot that's more asphalt than charm. I work at a small media company downtown doing admin stuff and dabbling in content creation. Nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills. Most days, I'm just the guy who makes sure the printer doesn't jam and throws together social media posts that get a handful of likes. I'm good at my job, but if I'm honest, my real talent is cracking dumb jokes to make my coworkers laugh. It's my thing keeps the office from feeling like a cubicle graveyard. Life's been pretty predictable. Wake up at 7, fight traffic churn. Through emails, grab a burger for lunch, maybe hit a bar with friends on Friday, rinse repeat. I'm not complaining. It's comfortable like an old pair of sneakers. I've had a few relationships, nothing serious. The last one fizzled out a year ago when she said I was too laid back for her big plans. Maybe she was right. I don't dream of climbing corporate ladders or moving to some flashy city. I'm just Jared, the guy who's happy with a cold beer and a sketchbook, where I doodle random cartoons when no one's looking. That's where my head was on a Tuesday afternoon sitting in the break room with Travis, my closest buddy at work. He's 25, all energy, the kind of guy who'd bet you 10 bucks he could eat a whole pizza in one sitting and actually try. We were eating sandwiches, mine was turkey, his was some vegan thing. He swore tasted better than it looked. The break room's nothing special. Fluorescent lights, a wobbly table, and a coffee machine that spits out something closer to motor oil than espresso. We were halfway through lunch when she walked by the open door. Alyssa, our boss. 41 years old, though you wouldn't guess it by looking at her. She's tall, always in sharp blazers or pencil skirts, with dark hair pulled back just enough to say, I mean business. She's the kind of person who commands a room without raising her voice. Every meeting, every email, every glance, it's like she's 3 steps ahead of everyone else. The office whispers about her divorced a few years back, no kids, lives alone in a condo downtown. Nobody knows much else because she's private professional to a fault. But let's be real, every guy in the office and probably half the women have noticed her. Not just because she's beautiful, which she is, but because she's got this aura. Like she could run the world, but chooses to run our little media firm instead. Travis caught me staring as she passed by her heels, clicking on the tile. She didn't look our way, just kept walking toward her office, a stack of folders in her arms. He grinned, leaning back in his chair. What's that look, man? You crushing on the boss? I snorted, tossing a napkin at him. Shut up, I'm just zoning out. Yeah, right. He took a bite of his sandwich, still smirking. Bet you don't have the guts to ask her out. I laughed loud enough that the intern at the coffee machine glanced over. Ask Alyssa out, you're out of your mind. She'd fire me before I finished the sentence. Bet you $1,000 you won't do it, Travis said, eyes glinting like he'd just found the best game ever. 1,000 bucks, says you're too chicken to ask her to dinner. 1,000, I raised an eyebrow. You don't even have that kind of cash. I'll Venmo you, he said, leaning forward. But if she says no, you owe me. I shook my head, grinning. You're insane. Fine deal. We shook hands, both laughing like it was the dumbest thing we'd ever done. And it was just a stupid bet, a break room joke. Nobody was serious. I mean, come on, asking out Alyssa. That's like asking a hurricane to grab coffee. She was my boss, untouchable and way out of my league in every possible way. But that night alone in my apartment, the joke didn't feel so funny anymore. I was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through my phone, the TV droning some reality show I wasn't watching. My sketchbook sat open on the coffee table, a half-finished doodle of a cartoon dog staring back at me. I kept thinking about Alyssa. Not just her looks, though. Yeah, those dark eyes and the way she carried herself didn't help, but the little things I'd noticed over the months. The way she stayed late, always the last one in the office. The way she'd nod at my dumb jokes in meetings, not laughing, but not rolling her eyes either. The way her voice softened when she thanked me for fixing a spreadsheet at the last minute. I'd heard the rumors, her divorce was rough, she didn't date, she was married to her work. But there was something else there. Something lonely, like she was carrying a weight nobody else could see. I tossed my phone down and stared at the ceiling. The bet was stupid, sure, but what if I actually did it? Not for the money, Travis probably wouldn't even pay up. But for me, to prove I wasn't just the guy who played it safe, who doodled cartoons instead of chasing something real. My heart started pounding just thinking about it. Ask Alyssa out insane, reckless. but the idea wouldn't leave me alone. By Thursday, I was a wreck. I'd catch myself watching her in meetings, trying to read her. She'd be explaining analytics or assigning deadlines, and I'd be wondering what she was like outside these walls. Did she laugh at dumb movies? Did she have a favorite diner? Did she ever let anyone in? I was losing it and Travis wasn't helping. He kept texting me memes of guys sweating before big moments captioned, "You gonna do it or what?" Friday rolled around and I made up my mind. The office was quiet by 7 p.m., most people gone for the weekend. Alyssa was still there in the conference room, her laptop glowing as she typed. I stood outside, hands in my pockets, feeling like I was about to jump off a cliff. This wasn't just about a bet anymore. It was about me, about taking a chance, about seeing if there was more to life than my safe little routine. I took a deep breath, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. "Hey, Alyssa!" My voice came out shakier than I wanted. She looked up her pen, pausing mid-sentence. "Yes, Jared." Her tone was calm, professional, but her eyes locked onto mine, curious. I swallowed hard. "I've got a personal question, kind of out of left field." She raised an eyebrow, setting her pen down. "Go ahead." My mouth went dry, but I forced the words out. "Would you maybe want to grab dinner with me sometime?" The room went silent. Her face didn't change, but her eyes held mine for what felt like forever. 2 seconds? 3. I braced for the worst laughter, a lecture, maybe a pink slip. Then she spoke, her voice steady but softer than usual. "I've been wondering when someone would ask. Didn't think it'd be you." I stood there, frozen in the conference room, Alyssa's words hanging in the air like a song I didn't know the lyrics to. "I've been wondering when someone would ask. Didn't think it'd be you." My brain scrambled to process it. Was she serious? Was this a trap? Her eyes, steady and unreadable, didn't give me any clues. I opened my mouth, then closed it, feeling like a fish gasping on dry land. What? What do you mean?" I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper. Alyssa leaned back in her chair, folding her arms. The faintest smile tugged at the corner of her mouth, not mocking, but like she was sizing me up. "I mean, I'll go to dinner with you, Jared. But this stays outside the office. No one knows. Not Travis, not anyone. Clear." I nodded, probably too fast, like a kid caught sneaking cookies. "Clear, yeah, totally clear." She stood gathering her papers, her movements as precise as always. "There's a cafe on Elm Street, the Rusty Spoon. 7:30 tomorrow night. Don't be late." She didn't wait for a response, just walked past me, her heels clicking softly as she left the room. The door swung shut and I was alone with the hum of the air conditioner and my own racing pulse. I stumbled back to my desk, grabbed my bag, and got out of there before I could overthink it. The Dallas evening was warm, the sky streaked with orange as I walked to my car. My phone buzzed. Travis, of course. "So, you do it." I ignored the text. Alyssa's words echoed in my head. No one knows. Not even Travis, who'd started this whole mess with his stupid bet. I wasn't about to cash in on a grand if it meant breaking her trust before we even started. That night, I barely slept. My apartment felt smaller than usual, the walls closing in as I replayed the moment. Alyssa wasn't just my boss, she was a force. Smart, sharp, the kind of woman who could shut down a room with a single look. I'd seen her handle boardroom arguments like they were child's play, but I'd also seen her stay late, hunched over her laptop, the only light in the office. There was a loneliness there, one she hid well, but I'd noticed it in the way she lingered after meetings, like she wasn't in a rush to go home to an empty condo. Why had she said yes? Was it pity? Curiosity? Or my heart skipped at the thought, did she actually see something in me? Saturday dragged. I spent the day cleaning my apartment, sketching half-hearted doodles of coffee mugs and dogs, anything to keep my hands busy. By 6 p.m., I was staring at my closet, second-guessing every shirt I owned. I settled on a navy button-down and jeans, nothing too try-hard, but not my usual graphic tee either. The Rusty Spoon was a 20-minute drive tucked away in a quieter part of Dallas, all exposed brick and warm lights. Not the kind of place you'd expect a corporate boss to pick, which made me even more nervous. I got there 10 minutes early, my palms sweaty as I scanned the room. The cafe smelled of roasted coffee and fresh bread, with soft jazz playing in the background. Couples and small groups chatted at wooden tables, and I wondered if I'd stick out like a sore thumb. Then I saw her. Alyssa was already there, sitting by a window, her dark hair loose for once, catching the glow of the streetlights outside. She wasn't in her usual blazer or skirt, just a white blouse sleeves rolled up and jeans that made her look human, approachable. She was reading a menu, her fingers tracing the edge absent-mindedly. I walked over, my heart hammering. "Hey," I said, sliding into the seat across from her. "Didn't want to keep you waiting." She looked up, her eyes softening. "You're early. Good start." She set the menu down, and for the first time I saw her smile. Not the polite office smile, but something real, like she was actually glad I was there. "And don't call me boss tonight. Just Alyssa." I laughed, more out of nerves than anything. "Got it. Alyssa it is." The waiter came by, and we ordered her a glass of white wine and a salad, me a burger and a beer. The small talk started easy, the cafe's vibe, the Dallas traffic. How the office coffee machine was a crime against humanity. But then it shifted. She asked about my doodles, the ones I'd left on a notepad during a meeting once. "You're always sketching," she said, her voice curious. "What's that about?" I shrugged, feeling my face heat up. "Just something I do when I'm bored. Keeps my hands busy, mostly dumb stuff, cartoons, dogs, coffee cups." "It's not dumb," she said, leaning forward slightly. "It's honest. Most people here spend their days trying to look important. You just do you." I didn't know what to say to that. Nobody had ever called my doodles honest before. I took a sip of my beer to cover the awkwardness. "What about you? You're always working late. Don't you ever get tired of it?" Her smile faded just a little. "Sometimes. But it's easier to focus on work than other things." She paused, swirling her wine. "After my divorce, I needed something to hold on to. The job was it. Keeps me sane." I nodded, not pushing. I'd heard the office gossip her ex was some finance guy, cheated, left her to pick up the pieces. But hearing it from her, even in that vague way, felt like she was letting me in just a crack. "You ever think about doing something else?" I asked. "Like, I don't know, running away to paint houses in Italy or something?" She laughed, a real laugh that made her eyes crinkle. "Italy, maybe. But I'd probably end up organizing their paint cans instead of painting." She leaned back, her gaze softening. "You remind me of me at 27, thinking the world could be anything if you just took a chance." My chest tightened. "Yeah, well, taking chances isn't exactly my specialty. This," I gestured between us, "this is probably the dumbest thing I've ever done." Her eyebrows shot up, but she was still smiling. "Dumb, huh? Should I be offended?" "No, no," I said, quickly laughing. "I mean, asking you out. I thought I'd crash and burn. Still might." "You're doing fine so far," she said, her voice low, almost teasing. "But the night's young." We kept talking about her love for old jazz records, my secret obsession with cheesy action movies, the way we both hated the office's Monday morning meetings. It was easy, like we weren't boss and employee, just two people who'd stumbled into the same moment. When the check came, I reached for it, but she beat me to it, sliding her card to the waiter. "My treat," she said. "You took the risk asking. I can cover this." I didn't argue. As we stepped outside, the night air cool against my skin, she paused on the sidewalk. "This was nice, Jared. Really nice." "Yeah," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Can we do it again?" She looked at me, her eyes catching the streetlight. "Let's see how this one settles first, but yeah, I think we can." We said goodnight, and I watched her walk to her car, her silhouette disappearing into the Dallas night. My phone buzzed to Travis again. "Details, man." "You owe me a story?" I didn't reply. This wasn't about the bet anymore. It was about Alyssa, about whatever this was, and about the part of me that didn't want it to end. The Monday after our dinner at the Rusty Spoon, I walked into the office feeling like I was carrying a secret the size of Texas. Alyssa was already there, standing by the conference room, her usual blazer and skirt combo crisp as ever, her hair pulled back in that no-nonsense bun. She was talking to the creative director about a client pitch, her voice steady, commanding. Nobody would have guessed that 48 hours ago she was laughing at my dumb action movie references over a glass of wine. I slid into my cubicle, opened my laptop, and tried to focus on emails, but my eyes kept drifting to her office door. When she passed by, her gaze flicked to me for half a second, just long enough to send a jolt through my chest before she kept walking. No smile, no nod, just business as usual. And yet that tiny look felt like a whole conversation. That night, my phone buzzed as I was heating up leftover pizza in my apartment. A text from Alyssa. "You free to talk?" My heart did a flip. I typed back, "Yeah, just me and some questionable pepperoni." "What's up?" She replied with a link to a meme, a cartoon of a guy tripping over his own ego in a meeting. "Reminded me of today's client call," she wrote. I laughed out loud alone in my kitchen and sent her one back, a dog in sunglasses, with the caption, "Too cool for Monday." She responded with a laughing emoji, and just like that, we were texting back and forth like it was the most normal thing in the world. Over the next week, it became our routine. By day, we were model employee and boss. I'd hand in reports, she'd give feedback, all professional, no cracks in the facade. But after hours, it was different. "You eaten yet?" I'd text and she'd reply, "Just ordered Thai." You. We'd trade memes, argue about whether jazz or classic rock was better, or vent about the office's endless meetings. One night she sent, "Client yelled at me today. I didn't flinch, but I wanted to throw my coffee mug." I wrote back, "Should have sent them my doodle of a screaming goat. Works every time." She replied, "Send it. I dare you." So I did a sketch I'd done during a boring call, a goat with a tie yelling into a void. She texted back a voice note, her laugh soft and unguarded, and I played it 3 times just to hear it again. We met up again a week later, this time at a dive bar a few towns over, far from anyone who might recognize us. The place was all neon signs and sticky tables smelling of fried onions and cheap beer. Alyssa showed up in a black sweater and jeans, her hair loose, a faint trace of lipstick that caught the light. She looked younger, lighter, like she'd left her corporate armor at home. "No wine tonight," I teased, as she ordered a whiskey soda. She smirked. "Sometimes I like to mix it up." "Keep up, Jared." We found a corner booth away from the crowd and talked for hours. She told me about growing up in Austin, how she'd wanted to be a writer before she fell into marketing. "I was going to write the next great American novel," she said, her eyes distant. "Then life happened. College, marriage, bills. You know how it goes." I nodded, sipping my beer. "I wanted to be a cartoonist when I was a kid. Thought I'd have my own comic strip by now. Instead, I'm formatting PowerPoints." She leaned forward, her elbow brushing mine. "You're still drawing, though. That's more than most people do with their dreams." I shrugged, feeling my face warm. "It's just doodles, nothing serious." "It's serious if it's you," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "Don't sell yourself short, Jared. You've got more going on than you think." I didn't know how to respond to that. Nobody had ever looked at my sketches and called them serious. I changed the subject, asking about her divorce, not to pry, but because I wanted to understand her. She took a long sip of her drink before answering. It wasn't one big thing, she said, just a lot of little ones. He wanted someone who didn't ask questions, who'd just smile and nod. "I'm not that person. Never was. I can't picture you nodding along to anyone," I said, grinning. She laughed, her eyes crinkling. "Good. I'd hate to be predictable." We stayed until the bar started emptying out, our knees brushing under the table, our laughs getting louder with each round. When we stepped outside, the air was cool, the street quiet except for the hum of distant traffic. I walked her to her car, and before she got in, she turned to me. "This, whatever this is," she said, her voice soft. "It's nice. But we have to be careful. You know that, right?" I nodded, my throat tight. "Yeah, I know." She reached out her fingers, grazing my arm for a second. "See you Monday, Jared." Then she was gone, her taillights fading into the night. Back at work, it was like nothing had changed. Alyssa ran meetings with her usual precision, and I kept my head down, churning through spreadsheets. But every now and then, our eyes would meet across the room, and it was like a secret current ran between us. Nobody noticed, or so I thought. Travis cornered me at lunch one day, his grin sharper than usual. "You're different, man. What's going on?" "You still owe me details on that bet." "Nothing to tell," I said, shoving a fry in my mouth to avoid his stare. He didn't buy it, but he let it go. I wasn't about to spill. This thing with Alyssa, it was ours, fragile and real, like a sketch I hadn't finished yet. I didn't want to mess it up. But it wasn't all smooth. One night she texted me late around midnight. "Can't sleep. Too much on my mind." I wrote back, "Want to talk?" She called instead, her voice quieter than usual. "Sometimes I wonder what I'm doing," she said. "This job, this life. I keep it together, but it's heavy, Jared. And you're the only thing that feels light right now." I didn't know what to say, so I just listened. My phone pressed to my ear as she talked about the pressure of being the one everyone relied on, the way her ex had left her feeling like she wasn't enough. "You're more than enough," I said finally, my voice rough. "I see it every day." There was a long pause. "Thanks, Jared," she said, almost a whisper. I needed that. We hung up, and I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my heart racing. This wasn't just a fling or a bet anymore. It was something deeper, something that scared me as much as it thrilled me. Alyssa wasn't just my boss, she was someone I was starting to need. And that was dangerous territory. Monday morning hit like a freight train. The office was buzzing with the usual chaos, phones ringing, keyboards clacking, and the faint smell of burnt coffee from the break room. I sat at my desk trying to focus on a client report, but my mind was still stuck on Alyssa. Our late night texts, the dive bar, the way her hand had brushed my arm, it all felt like a dream I wasn't ready to wake up from. She was across the room, leading a team meeting, her voice steady as she outlined the week's goals. I caught her eye once, just for a second, and she gave me a look that was all business but carried a flicker of something more. It was our secret, and it made the fluorescent lit office feel like it was hiding a spark. But secrets have a way of slipping. That afternoon, we were in a brainstorming session for a new ad campaign. The conference room was packed, 10 of us around the table, Alyssa at the head, flipping through slides. I was pitching a tagline, something about authentic connections for a local brand, when I made a mistake. "It's like that meme you sent me," I said, grinning at Alyssa without thinking. "You know, the one with the dog trying to sell coffee." The room went quiet. Not dead silent, but enough for me to notice the creative director's raised eyebrow and the finance manager, Karen, shooting me a look like she'd just caught me stealing. Alyssa didn't flinch, but her pen paused midair. "Interesting analogy, Jared," she said smoothly, moving to the next slide. "Let's keep it focused on the client." My stomach dropped. I'd been careless, and I knew it. The rest of the meeting dragged, every second feeling like a spotlight on me. When it ended, I hung back, pretending to organize my notes while everyone filed out. Alyssa stayed too, shutting her laptop with a deliberate click. The door closed behind the last person, and she turned to me, her eyes sharp but not angry. "My office. Now." I followed her down the hall, my heart pounding like I was walking to my own execution. Her office was all glass and clean lines with a view of Dallas's skyline that made you feel small. She shut the door and leaned against her desk, arms crossed. "What was that, Jared?" Her voice was low control, but there was an edge to it. "You want to get us both in trouble." "I'm sorry," I said, my mouth dry. It slipped. I wasn't thinking. "That's the problem," she cut in. "You have to think. Always. You think I'm hard on you in meetings, it's because I have to be. If anyone even suspects something, it's not just gossip, it could cost me my job. And yours." I nodded, feeling like a kid caught breaking a rule. "I know, I messed up. It won't happen again." Her expression softened, just a fraction. She sighed, rubbing her temple. "I'm not mad at you, Jared. I'm trying to protect this, whatever this is. Because I like it. More than I should." My chest tightened. "I like it too," I said quietly. "And I'm not trying to screw it up. I just forgot where we were for a second." She looked at me, her eyes searching mine. "Do you still want to see me tonight?" The question caught me off guard. I'd half expected her to call it off, to say we'd gone too far. "Yeah," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "If you do." She nodded, a small smile breaking through. 8. Same bar. Don't be late." That night we met at the dive bar again, but the air felt heavier. She was quieter, sipping her whiskey soda like it was anchoring her. We talked about safe things, movies, the weather, but I could tell something was weighing on her. Finally, I asked, "You okay?" She set her glass down, her fingers tracing the rim. "I haven't done this in a long time, Jared. Letting someone in. After my divorce, I built walls. Work was easier than people, but you—" She paused, meeting my eyes. "You make me want to try again. And that scares me." I reached across the table, my hand brushing hers. "I'm scared too, but I'm not going anywhere." She squeezed my hand just for a second, then let go. "We have to be smarter. No more slip-ups." "Deal," I said, meaning it. 3 weeks later, Alyssa texted me on a Thursday night, "Pack a bag. We're getting out of town this weekend." No details, just an address and a time. Saturday morning, I met her at a gas station on the outskirts of Dallas, her silver Lexus gleaming under the sun. She was in jeans and a loose sweater, sunglasses perched on her head. "Ready?" she asked, tossing me a coffee from a nearby shop. Where are we going? I asked, climbing into the passenger seat. Port Aransas, she said, starting the engine. Little beach town on the Gulf. Nobody knows us there. The drive was 4 hours, the Texas landscape rolling by flat fields, giving way to coastal marshes. We listened to her jazz playlist Miles Davis, filling the silence, and talked about nothing and everything, her first job as a barista, my failed attempt at skateboarding in high school. By the time we reached the beach town, the sun was low, painting the sky pink. Alyssa had rented a small wooden cabin tucked behind dunes, the kind of place with creaky floors and windows that opened to the sound of waves. That night, we sat on the porch with a bottle of red wine, the ocean a steady hum in the background. She leaned back in her chair, her bare feet propped on the railing. You ever think about why we're doing this? She asked, her voice soft. I took a sip of wine that tastes sharp on my tongue. All the time. I mean, I started it as a dare, but now it's not about that. It's about you. She turned to me, her eyes catching the moonlight. You know I was married, right? It wasn't just a divorce, it was a wreck. He cheated, lied, made me feel like I was the problem. I swore I'd never let anyone close again. I set my glass down, leaning closer. I don't need to know why it ended to want to be here, I just do. She reached for my hand, her fingers warm against mine. You're too good at this, Jared. Making me feel like I can trust again. We stayed up late talking until the stars were bright overhead. She told me about the nights she'd spent alone after her divorce, the way she'd thrown herself into work to drown out the hurt. I told her about my fear of never being enough, of staying stuck in a life that felt too small. Somewhere in those hours, with the waves crashing and the wine gone, she leaned her head against my shoulder. I didn't move, didn't speak, just let the moment hold us. It wasn't about passion or drama, it was about being there, real and raw, in a way neither of us had been in a long time. A month after our weekend in Port Aransas, the office felt like a different world. The hum of deadlines and the clatter of keyboards were the same, but I wasn't. Alyssa wasn't either. We'd settled into a rhythm, careful glances in meetings, late-night texts that stretched past midnight stolen moments at the dive bar or a quiet diner far from work. Nobody knew, not even Travis, who'd given up pestering me about the bet. But secrets have weight, and I could feel it in the way Alyssa's shoulders tensed when we passed each other in the hall, the way I double-checked every word before I spoke in the office. We were careful, but careful doesn't mean easy. Then everything shifted. It was a Thursday, gray and rainy, the kind of day that makes Dallas feel like it's holding its breath. I was at my desk tweaking a social media post when Alyssa called me into her office. Her voice on the intercom was clipped professional and my stomach knotted. Had someone noticed something? Was she pulling back? I walked in, closing the door behind me, and found her standing by the window, looking out at the city's wet skyline. She was in her usual blazer, but her arms were crossed, her fingers tapping against her elbow. Jared, she said, turning to face me. I got an offer, a promotion, senior director at the New York office. My heart sank, but I kept my face steady. That's big. Congratulations. She didn't smile. It's a chance to start over. New city, new team. But it's a lot to think about. She paused, her eyes locking onto mine. I wanted to talk to you first. I leaned against the edge of her desk, trying to process. New York was a world away, skyscrapers, subways, a life I couldn't picture. What are you thinking? I asked, my voice quieter than I meant it to be. She stepped closer, her heels silent on the carpet. If I go, we wouldn't have to hide anymore. No office politics, no whispers. We could just be us. The words hit me like a wave. Us. Not a secret, not a risk, but something real out in the open. I wanted it. God, I wanted it. But the idea of her leaving, of this thing we'd built being stretched across half the country, made my chest ache. And if you stay, I asked. She sighed, looking down at her hands. I'd be passing up something I've worked for my whole career. But I'd be here. With you. Her voice cracked just barely, and it was the first time I'd seen her look uncertain. I don't want to lose this, Jared. I don't want to lose you. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about us anymore. It was about choices, about what we were willing to risk. I thought about our nights at the bar, the cabin by the sea, the way she'd laughed at my doodles and made me feel like I was more than just a guy with a desk job. She'd changed me, made me braver, made me want to be someone who didn't just coast through life. But I couldn't ask her to give up her dream, not when I knew how hard she'd fought to get here. Let's get coffee, I said finally. Not here, somewhere else. An hour later, we were at a small cafe a few blocks away, the rain tapping against the windows. We sat in a corner booth, her with a latte, me with a black coffee I barely touched. The place smelled of cinnamon and wet coats, and the hum of conversation around us felt like a shield. You should go, I said the words heavy but sure. New York's your shot. You've earned it. She looked at me, her eyes searching. And us. I reached for her hand under the table, her fingers warm against mine. I'll buy a plane ticket. Weekends, holidays, whatever it takes. I'm not letting this go, Alyssa. Not because of a few thousand miles. She didn't say anything for a moment, just held my hand tighter. Then she smiled that real smile I'd only seen when we were alone. You're braver than I gave you credit for, Jared. Learned it from you, I said, grinning despite the ache in my chest. We sat there for a while, the rain outside softening to a drizzle. She told me about New York, how she'd always wanted to live there, how the city felt like a place where she could be herself, not just the boss or the ex-wife or the woman with walls. I told her I'd visit and maybe even move there someday if I could swing it. We didn't make promises we couldn't keep, didn't talk about forever. We just talked about now about plane tickets and late-night calls about finding a way to make this work. When we left the cafe, the sky was clearing, the streets slick and reflective. We stood on the sidewalk, her umbrella dangling unused in her hand. This isn't the end, you know, she said, her voice steady. It's just a new chapter. I nodded, pulling her into a hug, not caring if anyone saw. Yeah, and I'm pretty good at writing new chapters. She laughed, her breath warm against my shoulder. You better be. Back at my apartment that night, I opened my sketchbook, flipping past doodles of dogs and coffee cups to a blank page. I started drawing, not a cartoon, but her. Alyssa, with her sharp eyes and quiet smile, the way she looked at me like I was someone worth seeing. I didn't know what New York would bring or how we'd navigate the distance, but for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the unknown. She'd taught me that taking a chance, whether it was a dumb bet or a leap across the country, was the only way to find something real. And what we had, it was real. It was enough.